Harvest is in the air, and we're putting pumpkins at our front door and mums and hanging wreaths on our door. Hey, I'm Donna Dewberry, and I'm here today in the Plaid studio ready for another Let's Paint FolkArt One Stroke hometown lesson. Doesn't that sound fun? And today's October lesson is all about painting the front of your house. I think this is painting the front of my house like I wish the front of my house looked, with all those yummy flowers and pumpkins. What about you? I have to tell you that this kit is on plaidonline.com/Let's Paint, and then click Hometown and you'll see this kit. The kit's great. It's got everything that you need in it except for your surface to paint all year long with me every month. So in the kit, I have painted a folder for you that's hand painted by me, and all 12 of the reusable teaching guides that we painted for every lesson will fit inside that folder. We also have the FolkArt One Stroke brushes, and we even have a stencil brush to use with the 2 stencils that are upper and lowercase letters so that you can personalize even more your great paintings. We have something that we've never done before with my lessons, and that is some templates that are like patterns for some of the windows and doors and houses, and also wonderful sentiments and letters and words that are wonderful to be putting onto your project so you can customize it like you want. Not even the lessons that we've done sometimes, you pick out what you want. So the best part in this kit though is the FolkArt multi-surface paint. I love it, and so will you if you haven't already fallen in love. So I'm ready to go to Plaid Studio and start our lesson to bless this home. Okay, we're in a warm studio with the weather chilly outside, and it just puts me in the mood to paint this warm, beautiful painting with all the rich colors for fall, which I love. So I love doing the door, putting a wreath on top, but what makes the door really nice is that we have our panels on the door, and that's a step that sometimes we don't do, but learning it's gonna be really fun. Then having the window, and not just a window, but having a light in the window. Those are little details. We've got a flower box down here. We're gonna add actually 2 different ones. And then we're gonna end up with some shadows behind these leaves. I just think it's gonna be so much fun to hang this in your house, and we wanna make sure that we learn the bless this home as we put that on. So let's get started. I'm using 11 by 14 canvas, and when I get ready to base coat and start my process, I've got all my FolkArt multi-surface paint ready, and if you've got your kit, you have every color you need and you're ready. And we have our brushes that we're going to be using, the FolkArt One Stroke brushes, and when we're looking at our October teaching guide, the reusable teaching guide, we're going to paint right on this and wipe it off as we learn the steps that we're going to be doing. So the first thing we want to do when we look at this reusable teaching guide is the FolkArt multi-surface colors. So you want to make sure you pull all your colors, and then make sure you have your floating medium, and then which brushes I'm going to use, the 3/4 and the 12 flat, the 1/2 inch scruffy, and the number 2 script liner. So the first thing I want to look at is my background, and then I'm going to build from there. And when we're building, I want you to look at this again, but we're going to concentrate on the background. And so I have some yellow ochre and some white. You can look right here, and with the 3/4 inch brush we worked it in, and then I'll show you a little bit later how to lighten some of the shading in there after we get that background on. Now remember, this background we're doing here is actually the wall of your home, and so what we want to do first is we're going to keep our guide so we can see it, and we're going to use the yellow ochre, the multi-surface yellow ochre, and later we're going to add some wicker white to it. But as we're adding this on here, we're going to add more wicker white, but right now we're going to have yellow ochre and wicker white to start. We also have some floating medium that's going to make it move. I want it to move like butter on your canvas. So I'm going to move this to the side, And I'm going to dampen my brush, lay it on the paper towel, and then pick up white and yellow ochre, and I can blend it together just a little bit and dip the medium, work that in. The more I dip the medium and work this in, the easier it's going to go on my canvas, okay? And you can see that's way darker than I want it, but you might like yours a little bit darker. So you have that freedom to pick what you would like. All right, so this is your 3/4 inch flat that we loaded. It's our largest brush. And we are working, see how I'm just working that tone across. And I'm using, look at that, I'm using a lot of paint. And it doesn't matter if it's too dark because I just come right back in with some medium and white and work right on top of that. And this feels real smooth. And even though the canvas is a textured fabric, when we're adding the medium, it makes it just go on so lusciously. All right. So see, I keep getting more and more paint, and then I stroke back over it. Floating medium, wicker white, and yellow ochre. Okay. All right, so it's okay to have a few streaks in here, but it's really easy to just pick up the wicker white and be sure that you're continually picking up the floating medium, because that's what's given us that smooth moving and blending across our piece. Floating medium is what we use instead of water, and it makes a huge difference and not getting muddiness when we're doing our strokes. That's why I fell in love with floating medium. Okay, now after we're through painting, be sure that you go and do all the edges of your canvas. I don't want to get it on my table right now, so I'm just going to do the top as we're working and not spend the time on that right now. Now we need to let this dry, so I am going to move this to the side and pick up the canvas that I have already finished. And it's all completely dry, ready for us to go. It's lighter than our original, so it's in good shape. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, and if you're at home working on this, while you're at home working on this, we're going to decide how close we want. Let's put it closer to each other. How close we want from the top. And so the first thing I do when I'm laying out my door and my window is the first thing I'm going to work on. So I'm going to come over here, and the first thing I want to do is get my ruler and figure out we are right at 4.5 inches. So let's come here and make a mark for 4.5 inches, and that's going to help you be ready to do the top of the door. But we need two spots so that when you're coming across, you're going to get this straight because you have 2 marks to go on. Okay, so, but we don't know how wide we want it yet, so I'm just kind of putting that light line there. And then I want you to see on the side, there's 2 sides of the doors that we're concerned about. On this side of the door, it's slightly more than 1 inch, and then on this side of the door is slightly more than 1 inch. So it's the same proportion here and there, which gives a nicer look to the layout, all right? I'm sure the construction of that was done just like that on purpose. All right, so we're going to come down 2 spots again because that's going to make you have a straight line. If you have one place to mark it by, then you can be tilting and not be straight, okay? All right, so then we want to come over here and do our 5 1/4, a little bit less than 5 1/4 right here. Okay, same thing again, we have 2 spots. All right, so if I line this up, because I started to do the window, we can't do the window without having the door lined up, right? All right, because I'm taking this from the door and this from the door edge. All right, to make sure where I want it to be. 2 places. Now this is going to be higher because we have the window's not all the way down. So we're going to come right here and do a line on this side, okay? Now the paint can go right over these markings, so I don't worry about them a whole bunch, but the thing that you do know is if you have a white eraser, you can erase where the paint wouldn't go, and it makes it really nice. All right, so with this ruler, I'm going 4.5 inches tall. All right, so then what you have to decide is where to start the height. All right, this one right here is 6 1/4 from the top. So this is something that is not my favorite thing to do, but guess what happens? It makes everything straight and makes everything nice and clean. All right, so that's our top. And I'm gonna, let me just remind myself one more time. We got 4 3/4 for the window. Okay, and remember we are a little bit more than an inch from the side, an inch there. Okay, I already marked those. Okay, and do our base. Now what happens here is I'm going to just base coat in, but I do need, we're going to have the molding on the window, but I do need to come around and do the stiles on the side. So I can come right down here and have that same size over here, which is small on the side. All right, and that's just like a little bit more than 1/4 inch. But then when we do this right here, the top molding, we're going to be just not quite 1/4. All right, and then on the bottom I did larger. All right, I did a notch past 1/4. All right, and this is usually how the window has the molding on it. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this right now is because what we want to do is just paint the light on the inside of the window. Now sometimes you'll see some artists that and paintings that have dark in the window. I was wanting a glow, like it's evening. Let me line that up. And so I did the yellows on the inside because it's got a light going, all right? All right, so I'm not going to put the stiles in here yet, but sometimes if you do put them in, you can see through the painting. So you'll see me do that sometimes, sometimes not, all right? Depends on if I want to. Like on the door, I am going to do this because I'm just going to make that line a little stronger. Okay, I'm going to move this up a little bit so we're concentrating on what we're looking at right here. All right, so down here on the bottom, I put just a little bit of a stoop here. And so I've penciled that in here, just a little bit wider than the door. I'm going to come on down with the door to touch where that stoop is. Sometimes I have room for steps. We've done that if you followed along this year. All right, with our hometown projects. Okay, so there's the stoop, and then we have a couple of planters over here. We can go ahead and do those real quick if we want to. This planter I made a little bit higher right up here. Okay, and it's going to kind of come all the way across where the grass would be. So this is just a little bit of yard here, and then right in here is going to be the planter that holds the pumpkin. All right, it's got brown in that. And then up here, I kind of did right underneath the window box and just sketched a little planter here. And in this one, we have a birdhouse and a few other fun. But right now, all we want to do is base coat that in. When I came right here, right below the window, I want to put the birdhouse roof. So I'm coming up with a pole to hold the birdhouse, but I'm going to look at height there. See that height that I was looking at? All right, so I'm going to start like right here for inside where the point of the roof is going to be. Then we're going to come out with the roof itself. Okay. All right, now I'm going to have a base down here, which is going to be straight here, coming straight up here and straight up here. But we're looking at it from this side, so when we bring that just a little bit longer, we can come shorter here and have this angle back, so you're seeing the side view of it. So you wouldn't see a side view there, but you would see the side view up underneath the eave of the roof. Okay, so what I like doing when we're drawing these, I like to show you there's little steps to do that make it easy for you to design your own piece, like we're sitting here and designing this as we go. All right, now I have the advantage that I did it a little bit earlier, but when I created it, this is the step I did, so I like to share that with you so you can see. These are the steps I made as I was coming in here to do my birdhouse. And all the flowers are going to be free hand painted in there. This is just for base coating, remember? All right, so now what I want to do is come in here and let's look at the door. The first thing we need to do to the door is we are getting, this is 5 inches, so we want a 2.5 inch mark right here. This is going to be our center, and that's going to make everything line up nice, okay? 2.5 inches, and I'm going to put just a light pencil line at 2.5 inches, which is dead center, okay? And I just did it really light, and then what I did is I decided how big I wanted this in here, okay? And you can do yours whatever size, or you can leave out some of these raised panels. It's up to you, all right? And then I decided to make it just a little bit here, and I'll tell you that size in just a minute, okay? So this is right at a 1/2 inch, okay? So I came and decided in the beginning what I wanted in here, all right? Let's turn it sideways and let's do these straight lines. Make sure they're nice and straight, and I want to see them through my red paint that I'm going to base coat, all right? Okay. Now, whatever space is left, we're going to then decide from top to bottom here is 8 inches, okay? So it's 8 1/4 because we have the space here. So there's the 1/4 inch. Then we're going to come 8 inches down. So we have a 1/4 inch here again. And then 8 inches down from there. Okay, so let's do these. They're 4 inches each, so 4. And then we have the style in the middle, which is a 1/4 inch. And then this should be close to 4 right here. Okay, and so then we just repeat that on the other side. All right, now what's going to help you is that this over here, you don't have to put 2 notches on each one of these because we have the one on the other side to balance it. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to turn it again, and this is what we're going to do. See, we're going to go from that dot over there to this dot, and we're going to do the same thing here. So we're doing all of our straight lines here, and then we'll come do all of our vertical lines. These are all of our horizontal lines. Okay, so this is what's going to happen as I'm doing this. We're going to decide that we want these, this is 3/4 wide, all right? So from what's happening here, we're over 1/4. And that's going to be one line that we do. And there'll be a quarter over here. And these are all those vertical lines I told you about. One down here. So we just continue to put these lines through here. So create, sometimes some people put windows at the top, and you wouldn't make these 4 panels exactly like this, but I thought this was perfect for getting that darker shade that we might want. All right, so I can show you from here that we should have done all of these along there. Okay. All right, so now what happens with this door, I want to go ahead and have the raised area in here. And so all I did on these raised area is I did an 1/8 around here. So I just came around everywhere and just did that little teeny, not a quarter, so it's just an 1/8 around there. Bring that up there. Now that we've got all the 1/8 inch marks there, we're going to come around and put these little vertical lines in here also. So see, this is the time, a little bit time consuming, it might feel like sometimes, but the beauty of it is it looks really nice, clean, and then professional looking when you're all done. Is that a good word for us artists, professional? I can see sometimes paintings and go, wow, that looks so pro. Well, right here, this is going to make you look better. A ruler can be very important. Okay, so let's go right here. A good ruler makes a big difference when you're doing your designing. Okay. And we're ready to paint. Now the reason I penciled this in now is I wanted to show through my red because it's going to give you where to shade without any problem. Okay. There we go. So we want to erase this center line so it's not going to show through because we don't really put much of the darker burgundy looking shading on that. Okay, and we're ready. I think we're ready to start painting. I did just go ahead and put the windows panes in here. So let me go ahead and that's 2.5. Wait a minute. I know that's 2.5, so half of 2.5 is 1 1/4. So we're going to do 1 1/4 right here. Okay, so we're going to make the center line just like I did over there. Okay, and then I'm going to divide this into 2 spots here. So I did right at 1 inch each. Okay, so I'm going to come and divide this into 3s, 1 1/4 each. All right, and I'm just going to come across and do my panes. Okay. Okay. All right, let's start the fun part. We're going to, I like the detail part more always, but the fun part is to start seeing the color on here. All right, so let's take our 3/4 inch brush again, and we dampen that. I still have a little bit of yellow in it. So we're picking up apple red, and one thing that I do, if you lay this flat and come along here, the paint will bulge out to the side. But if you take and lay it like this and pull it down, you're going to have a better chance of a straight line. All right, so, and what we're going to do, I'm going to turn this sideways so I can work on it easier. We're going to pull all this in, and I'm going to use the floating medium again, so we get a nice coat in here, even if we have to come and put a second thin coat. I'm going to pick up the apple red and floating medium at the same time. Just come across here. This is more transparent, so that's why I come back and put another little coat on it a little bit later. Okay, so we're going to come along this way, and there are threads here that help you. Or you can tape this. I want to show you, I just went out, so let me show you what I do when that happens. I'm going to base coat all of this. I'm going to take a wet brush, and I've got my 12, and I can take and remove this with water and clean it up, okay? A lot of people will get paper towels and wet ones and try to get it off and get it straighter, but just a wet, clean brush works really good. See, I can see my line under there. But I am going to shade around the door with brown, so I'm not worrying too much if it's not exact, because we get a lot of nice shading there. All right, just a little tip. All right, then I'm going to come right down here again, pull it up, go a little bit slower so I'm on the line better. So all we have to do with red around the window is a molding around the window, and then we're going to put yellow in the window. Before we do anything else, we have to then let it dry. Take this off. Like what sometimes happens when you first start is that you think you can go back and pick this up afterwards. But let me explain something to you. What happens is when we don't have it exact and we come in yellow, put yellow right over the red, and then red back on again. So you go back and forth, and then you do have a big mess. So just go ahead and clean it up as you go. Or use tape, painter's tape. And if I'm really worried about being perfect, I will do that sometimes. Nice smooth strokes. And even though it's going to be shaded with really some burnt umber and make like a burgundy with some of these other shades, I'm still, right now I can see really good the lines for my panels. Do you see that? Now, you can take tracing paper, especially if you're going to do it more than once. Take tracing paper and do all those lines I just did one time there, and then you take the ruler and you can trace it all on. But I wanted you to see how to design that and do the vertical and horizontal lines. Okay, so down here on the bottom is going to be licorice, so I'm not worried about that spot there. But what I want to do is I want to go to a smaller brush. Let's go to the 12. Let's clean out our 3/4. All right, and pick up our 12 flat. All right, so now what I want to do with this is we're going to pick up the apple red, and we're going to come right along here. I told you it's always better if we go right straight along here. And one little trick I like to use, I could have used with a door, I'll show you now, is that you can take your finger on the edge here, the side edge, and get your straight line started and just pull your finger down and get a nice straight line. But you can't reach it over here. So right over here I have a basket hanging over the window there. Now I'm not laying this brush flat. If you notice, it's at an angle, because if I did it flat it would be a little bit bigger than this area. So I just pull it in an angle. And if it starts feeling dry, make sure that you add some floating medium. See my fingers going on the side again? And that gives you a steady hand, makes it easy for you to get that side. All right, there again. Now this is, I told you not to do that though, because we'll get an edge, but this is good for you to fill in the middle. All right, so we're going to come from here to there. Okay, so we just now see I can go flat because it's smaller than the opening. There we go. And all we have is this one area right here. All right, last little stretch. Now inside the window it's already a little yellow. So I take a little bit of yellow ochre now. Okay, and we're going to fill in with a 3/4. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to put some more floating medium out. And a little bit of the moon yellow. I put a teeny bit of this in here as I'm doing this. So I've got yellow ochre, moon yellow, and a little bit of wicker white. And be careful with the floating medium not to get into that, the red that I have in there. Okay, so you could let this dry so you don't pull red. And I have a little bit of a lighter glow over here where the candle's going to be. And then a little bit more of yellow ochre over here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is base coat everything in here. I'm going to come in here and put a little bit lighter here and there as we put the candle and all in here. And I'm going to actually bring my burnt umber. Cleaned out my 3/4 still. I'm going to bring the burnt umber in here. And all the grass is going to go across in this area. But I am going to bring a little bit of red and a little bit of the apple red, yellow ochre, and my burnt umber. And it gives a little bit more of a rust look. So that's apple red. But look, make sure that you go over here and you're looking at each color that we're using and how we created the colors. All right. So on here, you can look right here and see flower box. It's going to say that we use yellow ochre and burnt umber and a touch of apple red. So, but we used a 12 here. I'm showing you I used a bigger brush to pull in this here. But this was more of a container, but it ended up being more of a box when I painted it in because you really can't see it after I put all the leaves and everything. Same thing on the house itself, all right, on the birdhouse. So just look at all that. Birdhouse is a lot easier with the 12. And just keep referring back to that because we've given you all of the key components to make this turn out for you, especially if you're doing it along with me. You can stop the video and start and stop and start, but as you get caught up. But the beauty of it is on there, you're going to be able to say, oh, that's the color that we're using, and look for the brush, okay? Now, I'm going to clean this out, and I do need to get my greens, but I want to make my birdhouse, body of my birdhouse there. And what I did use, and you can look over here and see that I used just the burnt umber for the roof itself. With a 12 flat. All right. And then we're coming down for the body. Let's see, let's go straight here. And I did put a little rust in some of this birdhouse. And we come across here, and we are going to put more detail on it later. But I'm going to come down with the pole. All right. And let's get our greens. So when I put those in, I use citrus green and sap green. Okay. And I made it pretty dark, just so that you know there's greenery there. And when I'm using the dark, sometimes I want it darker so that you'll see all the light that goes on top of it, like the grass I'm going to add later. So I'm using my 12 flat, and I'm just coming right along here, and I'm slip slapping across here. Right along here. And I can just base coat it in actually and do more detail after I let this dry. Okay, so you want to take this all the way around. A little bit of medium, I help it move better. So I'm going to take the floating medium, makes it, see how smooth it comes across here. And we just fill it in. Oh, I've got one more spot I need to do, and that is the stoop there. It's the licorice. All right, so we're going to go right along the base of the door. Remember my little finger trick? You hold the little finger after you get the brush right, and it goes straight across for you. With licorice, and I'm using thick paint. I probably don't need the floating medium with licorice. You're going to come right here and pull straight down. And you can make this gray, you don't have to make it licorice. I shade some of these colors in on the door also. Okay, so now what has to happen before we can go anywhere with this is it has to sit and dry. And this is the point of base coating where we get it all in there and we're ready to do detail. Well, we don't want to do detail with all this wet paint. So I've already pre-painted one and we have it all dry. So I'm going to put this to the side. We are going to pick up our dry piece right here. Now, what I did do on here, I just want you to see, is that we have this iron rod planter hanger. I just want you to see that how I drew this in. All right, so it's just a piece that's on the wall next to the door. So I decided how long I wanted to do that, and you have it right here on your pattern. All right, so you could literally trace that if you wanted to. But I made it a little bit like a little bit it's 1.5 inches, and then I just made a curve that has to touch the base and then curve it around, and then all you do from there off this curve is you bring another curve and you bring it out here to where the basket's going to hang away from the door. Now when I first freehanded this, I made this way wide, but it really needs to be like a little chain that just hangs down in the middle so that when we put the basket in here, it's going to come right in here. Can you see that? Just decide how big you want it. And by penciling it in, it's going to help you so you don't get carried away. Because I get carried away in lots. I've seen lots of people do their flower box so big that you don't even see the window anymore. So those are things that you think about while you're doing this. All right, so while you're planning. Now, what I want you to see is that I came in here and I shaded. So when we're looking at the door, for instance, it's the apple red, but then we're going to double load and put some apple, or mix a teeny bit of burnt umber into our apple red. So that's what I'm going to shade with floating medium. And then the panels in the middle, I use more burnt umber. All right, but it steps right here. It tells you we used a 12 flat. We're going to put the doorknobs and all by making a little bit of gray, and then with the licorice and wicker white, and then hinges and the doorknob itself are all licorice. So let's get started working on the panels of the door here. So I'm going to use the 12 flat. I'm going to turn this a little bit because it's easier for you guys. People ask me all the time, can I turn my piece? It makes it easier for you to turn your piece if you're doing vertical lines. And these are the horizontal and the vertical are going to make a difference in how you lay it out. All right, so I am going to pick up a little bit of the burnt umber and the apple red, and let's just make a little bit of a mix here. All right, a little bit. Okay, so it just gives me a shade that I can shade with. I'm going to wipe this off because I'm going to use that paint. Clean my 12 flat. So now I'm going to pick up my floating medium and I'm going to just ever so lightly grab brown. So let me show you on here. So if I pick up, let me pick up some of this color that we mixed right there, okay? I'm going to go back and get my floating medium again. So this was the apple red. Let's just show you here. I think you can see it better. And mix it. I really want a lot of apple red. I'm just getting a tone that's going to shade, that's going to be darker but not too dark. Because we don't want it, we want the raised panel to be the burnt umber, so we need it to be a shade lighter. So now we've got this clean 12 flat, picking up the floating medium, and then this is what we do when we float. We go right next to the paint, not dip in it, stroke next to it. And we don't want it wimpy where you barely see it. We want to lay this brush flat and we want to get a strong amount, but see how I'm going over that? Because I'm pushing it back to the edge. All right, so I'm going to see how we did this around here. That will help you see it, but let's look at our picture. Let's look at this better. All right, so I did shade the door a little bit more, but then what I did is I came around where I drew those lines, all right? And that's what we're floating it. Okay, so you've got two examples there. So I came along here, but I want to show you that I'm going to keep coming over here, pick it up, and then let's go right along here. Now this is easier than base coating in the end because the floating medium helps you be forgiving on here, okay? I'm going to come right along here. Now we're on the inside. Sometimes we are on the outside of these panels, all right? So, and sometimes I do both. But can you see that I'm on the inside right now? All right. Now I want it, I'm going to come back in and maybe even do this darker brown later, the burnt umber. Okay. So see if you move it a little bit more, like I can shade it and make it a little bit darker and whiter. Some people like to do a heavier floating. Now see, when I went off there, there's two things I want to show you on this. On here, I want to make it stronger. I push the brush down a little bit harder. A little bit more pressure. All right. Then there, when I went off, remember the little trick I told you? With floating medium or water, you can come here and take off if I go over. All right, just really quickly. Okay, so let's go to, let me put floating medium on the plate so that I am able to show you that quicker, okay? So many people say, what is that again? That's the floating medium, and we use that instead of water. So FolkArt floating medium. Okay, so you want to keep this clean. That's the other thing that doesn't happen is people, as they're painting, they're not keeping that clean. All right, so we're going to go right around here. More. Okay, pick out more. Now on one side, we just used up everything that was on one side, but we still have paint on the other side when we're doing this, okay? So I can come along here and clean that up like that also. Turn it so it's easy for you to go across. I can come along here easier. All right. And then we're just going to repeat this on all of them. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do on the middle panel. So I'm going to just use burnt umber. All right. And all I did on the burnt umber, got my line already, and then I just fill it in. And that gives you that raised panel look. So I'm going to go and get all those in while you do yours, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now this is all dry and ready for us to darken the shading that I'm going to put on top of it. But I'm going to go ahead and start on our window framing on here. So I'm going to use the 12 flat again and floating medium with this mix that I have, which is the apple red and the burnt umber. Now I'm going to take and shade this whole area in darker. All right, so I actually don't have to float this as much because I'm going to make this whole area this color, and then I'll float around the panes of window. Okay, so see how that gives it a richer color on top of. I love apple red because it's nice and bright and a true pretty red. I'm running my finger on the side of the canvas again to get my nice straight line. All right, and then we're going to come across here. See how we have that rich burgundy color now? All right, then I'm going to take some burnt umber on the whole chisel of the 12. And I'm going to also use this here, my little finger over here. And I get that going like I want it. And then I slipped and then pull it straight down. Okay, so I am actually, now that I have that center in there, I'm actually going to go ahead and put our glow on our candle. Okay, so I'm going to pull, let's go to my teaching guide and let's look at the color here. I had white on the outside edge, but it won't show on my reusable teaching guide as easily, like you can see with the candle. So I am going to use the white on the outside, but it shares with you right here the wicker white and the glow of the candle wick there. That's going to show on top of this. So I want to show you up close that actually, see how I have that halo around there? All right, and so we had the light white on the outside edge. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there, and then we'll go back to our teaching guide for the next step on that. And so I drew that in there a little bit so it's easier. And I've got this clean 12 flat, a little bit of medium to make it move. And then let's get some more wicker white. And so the floating medium is going to make this blend into each other. So I put a little bit, I've got the floating medium worked into the yellow, then I dip a little bit of wicker white, and so this is moon yellow, wicker white, little teeny bit of glow on the outside edge. All right, so I'm going to take and go a half circle this way, come back over here and get some more, and a half circle this way. And now we want this to sit and dry for a few minutes. And so I'll make some more steps on here, and the glow I'll float with a floating medium afterwards. And I have some, let's put a teeny bit more lightness in here. Let's pick up wicker white, some more of that moon yellow mixed in. grab a teeny bit of floating medium and just have a little bit of a glow in there. Just a little bit. All right, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to, like I said, let that dry. And then we'll even let that dry before we put our other styles in here in between. All right, and then I want it to dry before we put the white candle because it'll turn it yellow. And I want it more white with gray trim on it. All right, so while we are waiting for that to dry for a minute, we're going to take the 3/4 inch flat and we're going to go back to our shading color and our mix that we made. All right, so see, that looks more burgundy. All right, so now I'm just going to come along this door and put this nice shading on here. Okay. All right, so I want to turn it sideways so I can reach it better. And now what we will do is shade around the outside of the door to make it have depth on the wall of the house here. We will shade all around it. So see, I can go sideways like this, but then I've got to pull it back in the direction of the door. Okay, I just want you to know, if I do this and paint the whole door this color, you don't get this brightness. If I just make a mix and make the whole door that color instead of going back and doing what I'm doing now, this makes me happy to have that apple red underneath. Okay, so we're going to come right along here. The floating medium lets it move for me. Medium, floating medium, and our mix. Okay, so as I'm working this in, I'm thinking ahead of what we're going to do next. We have accents to put on this door, and it's good to go ahead and put those on. So it's a little heavier there, so I picked a little bit more medium. Work it in. Okay, so we've got all the shading except for the styles on the window. All right. Now, I'm going to wash this out and see we have the burnt umber here. So a couple of things I did. I used all my yellow ochre. So I picked up a little bit of yellow ochre. All right. And I did put a little bit of shading of that in here because it would be between the window and it shadowed a little bit from the little bit of burnt umber. All right, right along here. Okay. Back and forth. So it's burnt umber, yellow ochre, floating medium. All right, so now I'm going to get just a little bit more burnt umber. And have that against the edge there. And then I put a little bit more along the window. All right. And I can do a little bit now since I've got the brown burnt umber color. I can put it here before I put the styles. All right, and I just did it on the corner and up here because the glow's down here. It's going to keep it lighter down in the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to come here a little bit more because this would be shadowed with this hanging basket there. So a little bit more floating medium, and we're going to come right around down here. See, I'm always putting my finger on the outside edge of the canvas when I can. A little bit. And I'm doing all this under here before I'm floating all along there before I start putting the plants in here. So I toned this down because that's so harsh. I toned it down with a little bit of yellow ochre and floating medium. All right. So this I didn't want this new looking and perfect, and it works better with the fall if it has some movement in it of color. See, I can just slap a little bit of that mix with the yellow ochre, burnt umber, and floating medium. Okay, a little bit down here. All in here is painted. Okay, so now I'm going to come along the door itself. Floating medium, burnt umber. Okay, so I'm right down here. Now that's not dark enough, so I'm going to actually pick up a lot more. And if it's not the color I perfectly want, I can use a little bit of yellow ochre in there too, just to warm it up a little bit. Now see, instead of if this line gets too big, just remember you can take and move it closer over to the edge. See how you can move it that much? Or not. I got a little bit more on the door that I don't want, so I take my web brush and wipe it off. Okay, so I do like it a little bit more than the other side. But see, you just go back and forth. Okay. And this just gives it dimension, like the door is not just flat. Okay. There we go. Now, I do put a lot of shading up there when I get ready to put the fall leaves and the branch like coming from a tree over there. All right. So now we've got all the door shaded and all. I do want to add, I usually use chalk to show you this, but it would be too big to draw this the detail on here. So let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to take some worker white and put it here, pick up some licorice and mix it over here. All right, I want a little bit more white. Okay, and right here we're going to put the doorknob plate right there. All right, and we rounded the bottom and rounded the top. And we also want to come up here while I'm doing that. I picked out a little floating medium because it's a little thick for me. And I'm going to come right straight down here with a 2-script liner. I didn't tell you I'm using a 2-script liner. Okay, I'm going to highlight this with some white. I'm going to start out with going around one way, then come around the other way, come down around, So you break up those curves, they're easier to do, kind of like scroll work, where we're coming around. Okay, and then we go around this way. All right, so then I did just do little teeny, kind of like a chain. And most of this doesn't show the flowers in here. And I can erase that pencil line if it ends up showing afterwards. See how I'm just doing the little spots of it? And you know what? Let's go back over here, because I jumped over there without sharing with you. That right here, we're going to, every step that we're going to need to get that iron work on there. And see the little dots? And so literally you can trace that one on because it's exactly the size that we're using. While I was waiting for my ironwork to dry up here, I decided I wanted to start with a fresh, clean palette before I do all the fun detail that we get to do now. Because now I really enjoy what I'm getting ready to do. I tell you, when I'm all done, I love the overall look, and I love that I did it. But during this time, I'm like, it's so precise for me. But I'm trying to show you simple ways to make that happen. Now, I'm going to go make some more of that iron look, because with the wicker white and the licorice, I want to do like a pewter looking or wrought iron, whatever, candle holder. So I want you to look right here. It's showing you that we just did the base and a little curl to hold it with, to pick it up with. All right, so we have that there, and then on the side, I'm going to do a little curve, a hook, kind of. All right, so now what happens is, now that it's been dry there, I can come in here and add my candle, which is the wicker white, just as thick wicker white. It's not got floating medium. And what I did do is go back over to my gray mix and put a streak for shading on this side, like a shadow effect. Come back here a little bit more. See, so, and I'm using the one script liner for this smaller detail. I can come over here and straighten it up a little bit. Can you show me the RTG, what everything you're doing? Okay. Now, if you're concerned about this, you can always go in here and lay this on your teaching guide and see how the gray is going to look when you put it on there. And so that makes it easier for you to do it right on here and make sure that you like it before. See how I just showed you that I put the white on here again. So that will make it easier for you. But then the next thing, and you have to have your little eraser. I like a paper towel folded in quarters so I can wipe it off, because our paint's made to stain on multiple surfaces. So if you leave it there, it's going to be difficult to take off. All right, so then what I want you to see is I picked up a little bit of water with my licorice, a little bit, make a little bit inky, roll the brush. That's the only time I use water is when I'm using the 2-script liner sometimes. And then I want you to see the little accent lines that are right there. And it shows you that we're going to put those right in here. And I can also take them around on the ironwork a little bit with licorice, all right? Now, I didn't show it there, but this looks like it's a flat color to me, so there's two things I can do. I can come down here a little bit more with some licorice, since I've already got that inky done. Or I can do both. I can add a little bit of white when I do some white highlights and other spots later. All right. I can also while I have this licorice here, I can come down on the side and get an accent right on top of here. All right. Now let's look at the doorknob right here. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up with the 2-script liner. I'm going to roll this brush in here, and then the 2-script liner with thick paint, not inky. And then I put the hinges right here. I put the hinges in 3 places along here. Okay, and then I'm going to use, just like we did here, it tells you to use this too. We're going to take the handle of the 2-script liner, dip, and then come right here and make a little circle to be the size of the doorknob you want. Okay, now be sure to wipe that off, because then you're going to get it all over you later. And then I'm going to take that licorice that was inky, and I'm going to do the handle down here a little bit. And that's when I might put a little bit of the white. And you notice I didn't clean off that licorice. I just added it to it. And I can add it to a little bit of white on here. See, just a little bit of accent. And I can do the same thing here, just a little bit. Okay. All right. So what we need now is we need to come here, and it shows you how to do the glow that we're going to do. So it's going to tell you that we're going to use, the flame is going to be moon yellow. And I am going to put some apple red inside of the flame, just a touch. Oops. Let's hope I'm going to use those on our poppies, right? All right, so I've got just the moon yellow, but I want that to show on that on that moon yellow background. So I picked up thick white with the moon yellow, and I just do a little flame on there. And then touch it with a teeny bit of red, the apple red. And there we go. And you can put a wick. Sometimes the wick shows, but it might not even show one there. But sometimes my paintbrush split apart because it doesn't have enough paint in it. So you can line a little bit more paint up there. All right, so let's go back to our candle, and we want some wax on the candle. So I'm going to take thick, I've cleaned my 2-script liner, I'm picking up thick white, and I want to just dab little bits, and it's right on your teaching guide, it shows you too. And we're tapping all along there. Okay, so let's look again and make sure you can see. You're going to just tap and see if you like the way it looks when you're tapping on here. And that's what's going to be. It's like melted wax. Okay. And now let's clean that off. I'm going to go ahead and take it off of here again. Now what I want to do is finish these window styles, and we need burnt umber to do that. So what's going to happen is we're going to put some burnt umber across with the 12 flat again. So these are the ones that I wanted the candle in there first. And we're going to pick up the burnt umber on both sides of the 12. And we're going to come right inside here. And I'm going to get that leaning and then pulling it with my little finger. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I am going to take a minute here and see if I put this on here, it's going to take the very top of that wick off. Just be careful so it doesn't take too much. All right. I think I did touch this on mine. I just put a little touch of this here so it didn't look like it took it totally off. Now I'm going to let this dry a little, the styles dry some, and I want to come back and put a glow that's even fuller around of just a little bit of white. So we'll do that a little bit later. And before I go anywhere, I'm going to go up here and do our basket, but I'm going to go ahead and finish detail on this birdhouse so I don't forget here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I took burnt umber on the handle of this brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of a hole in a perch, all right? And we're going to use the handle for the hole, and right here, we're going to do every little step that says right here to make it easy for you. Now, I put some little detail on here, and it looks like I want to put a little bit of licorice on here, and when I do the base of the birdhouse, I'm using the licorice for this and the 2-script liner, all right? So it goes a little bit further than the house going backwards. I mean, towards the back. And then I did a little perch here, okay? And little detail underneath here. So there's the licorice under here. Okay, and then I'm going to take and do little bits of distressing, is what I would say. Little bits of licorice distressing to give you more detail. Okay, so I want to continue doing the inky licorice. See, we've got inky licorice lines all in here. And then we came in here with a little white highlight. Can you see that? And you can look at the great detail there. It's easier than even being on the video with me. So we're making inky with water. That's the only time we use water is with that script liner. We roll it and then we pull out. So we have a really fine line. Okay. So I'm going to now let's move it a little bit so you can see. All right. We've got the corner here. And then I like to pull a few coming down. And you can make it like planks of wood. Right? And then along the post, a little bit of detail I showed you right here. Make sure you look there. It tells you all the colors that we're needing. All right. I put it in here. You can see I put a touch of apple red in here. Just a little bit, which gives you that rusty tone. And now I'm going to do the inky white. Now each section of what I'm teaching you is right here on your worksheet, which makes it really easy for you. I like for you to watch the video, and then as you're working, you can keep referring. After you've watched me, you keep referring to the detail that I'm sharing with you on our reusable teaching guides. So we go around just a little bit of the hole, touch the end of the purge so it looks round, and just little teeny bits of highlight makes it look better. All right. So, and we'll do that often as we're painting, but I just like to address each one as we go so you will feel comfortable with that. All right, so I want to put our wreath on here, but up here, look at these leaves up here. When we put all these leaves up here, I put branches, then I added the leaves, and then when that dries, we shade it a little bit more. And I want that to be dry, so when we come up there, we can shade it without a problem. So why don't we go back to, I'm going to do the wreath and I'm going to do these leaves and branches. So if you go here, I'm using with the 3/4 inch flat, I'm using the yellow ochre with the burnt umber. All right, and we're working that in. And then afterwards, we will shade it after it's all dry. Okay, so let's pick up. We're over here, so we're not next to each other. So I'm just going to pick up, this is a dampened brush that I've dried on the paper towel. Picked up yellow ochre and burnt umber, and I'm just going to work that in. Okay, I want it at least 2/3 up the brush. This is real important because we haven't done a lot of loading, double loading so far today. All right, then I can come in here without it split and work this in a little bit more. Okay, so see, that's at least 2/3 full. All right, now I can keep picking up paint over here or over here when I come back to get more. But now I want to dip straight into the floating medium and work that in. All right, so I'm on here, and you take those colors and we're going to go right, let me move this aside so I don't get it on my painting. I'm going to practice by coming right along here, and you lift the front edge and you're picking up and you're switching to, I'm dragging the dark burnt umber behind, or I flip it and I drag the yellow ochre behind. And so these are just nice little branches, and you can get them really thin depending. You don't turn it all the way up till it fans the back. You touch, tilt slightly, and drag them, and then you can get really thin. All right, so I'm going to put this down, and I want to show you one more time. All right, so I'm lifting it like this, and see how I'm lifting the front. All right. All right, so then just put a few little thin ones in here. All right, and then what I want to do, I put a few really thin ones over here where bless is going to be, and I like it kind of underneath the bless. Blessed. No, it is bless. There we go. All right, so I'm going to wash that out, and we're going to use a 12 for these small leaves. So if you look at this right here, we are using the number 12 flat, and we're going to double load it with yellow ochre and burnt umber. So I'm having the burnt umber on the outside edge. So we're going to do the same way, and the way that you can make sure that you can see this well is that if I take yellow ochre and I grab a little bit of burnt umber, because sometimes it's not half and half, sometimes it's 2/3 yellow ochre, 1/3 burnt umber, and I come right here to this edge, right here, and I'm working it in. I don't want it too much brown, too much of the burnt umber. We want it more yellow ochre. Okay, so then what we can do is we can come right here and try it and see if it's looking the color we want it. We can also pick up a little bit of wicker white and work that in and get another different shading with the wicker white on the side. Okay, so now this is real important. We're going to practice these leaves. Now the difference is, you saw how I added a little bit of white over here. We're going to add a little bit of apple red. So what we're going to do is we come right here. You can watch it over here. We come up and then back, up and then back, and slide back down. So when we do it here, now I'm not pushing hard. I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm up on the chisel a little bit more because it's small. And you follow those arrows and then stand up. All right, so then when we practice it, and you've got to practice that a little bit, guys, but this is slick and it makes it nice for you to practice on. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow ochre and burnt umber. Burnt umber I had plenty, so I wanted to get a little bit more yellow ochre. So I can then start here and show you that we're going to fill in on this teaching guide one side. Now all I have to do, is this color right here, pick up a little bit of apple red and work that in. And then I practice it right there to see that color. And I really just want it on the edge. And see, that's too dark, so I can see that I need to, that's perfect helping you see how to get the right color. So I'm going to pick up the yellow ochre and then come over here and side stroke even a little bit of apple red. And then make sure the color is good over here. Still a little bit more yellow ochre. And then we should be good. See that? So now you're going to come right here and come back. And you're going to come to the middle. See, we're meeting where the last strokes were. And then we stand up, and pull the stem in the middle. Okay? And so we have different colors. These are the ones that are going to go on the wreath itself. And we'll come back and practice those in a minute because I don't want you to forget what we're doing on here. And make sure you keep your reusable teaching guide near you so that you know, so it reminds you the strokes that we're doing. And so I put a little bit, I still have the red in it, so I'll put a little bit, let's do one right there because I have a spot, with a little teeny one-stroke leaves with little bits of red on them. All right, put a few here and there while I've got that on my brush. These are single strokes right here. Let's practice those. See this? We're going to push down. We're going to put that down and stand up, down and stand up. All right, so those are the smaller leaves. We didn't practice those. Okay, so I'm going to come right here and let's come right in this area. Oops, I'm going to turn it a little bit by watching your teaching guide. And that's on just that little bit of red on the red side. And I'll do one more over here where I'm just doing the outside edge on the right. And then up here, there is one kind of behind the B there. All right, so just a little bit of red. And now I'm going to go back to pick up the burnt umber. So we pick up a little bit of yellow ochre, apple red, dip of burnt umber, and work that in. A little bit. So it's just like a quarter of the brush is burnt umber, and the rest is yellow ochre. All right, so we'll come over here. And all my eyes are doing, guys, is watching the outside edge. All right? So let's look at this again, have it right by you so you feel comfortable when we go wiggle out, slide back, and we put a little bit of pressure to take it to the tip. And you lift and slide to the tip. So one more right here. Wiggle out, slide back, out, back. Okay, now pressure. Now lift, 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 and slide. And then you come on that stem and you pull another stem into the middle. All right, so I did put on here a couple that I want to share with you that have brown in the middle as I'm stroking it. It's got brown on both sides and a little bit of color in the middle also. Put the guide in front of you so you're remembering what you're doing. It helps. It helps you keep focused on how you did that. Okay, so I have a couple of ways. I'm going to put this all on the outside, both sides. All right, and then pick up a little bit more brown, a little bit more yellow ochre, burnt umber and yellow ochre. And we are going to do another one up here. And then these, I'm going to shade over this a little bit more when we come back after it's dry. I did a couple burnt umber ones. And then the rest have some yellow ochre mostly. And every once in a while we can put a little bit of apple red. And one thing I really like to do, I'll just show you really quick, is I like to use a dirty brush that's got some of these colors in it. And I pick up floating medium and I clean the brush out in the floating medium. I scrape that off, wipe it off, and then I paint with it. And that's just floating medium and the color in the brush. And this, where is it? There it is. Then this is just little bits of color. And it can be all brown. I chose some little bits of red in it. And they're called shadow leaves. We make those with a floating medium and a dirty brush. And you pull a stem in them too because it shows. So see, I'm pushing, then I pull the stem in it. So there you go. So now we want that to dry. I did a few extra ones on there, but it's pretty much looking the same. All right. So then what I want you to see is let's figure out how to do this wreath. And I do have a position of where we want to put it. So let's look at the wreath. It's double loaded with the yellow ochre and the burnt umber. All right. So this is also a little bit smaller, but about the same shape. But if you look on here, you can see on the teacher guide too, that up here's where I start, and I'm going down almost to here. Okay, so that's just like 2 fingers from the bottom of this. And then I want you to just dot the yellow ochre in position to do that wreath. Okay. All right, so I've got the size I want. You can do chalk with that too. I do that a lot. All right, yellow ochre and a teeny bit of burnt umber on the same corner. All right, and so you can practice it to see if you're getting that look or the same colors, but it's just taking the corner of the brush and doing that. So I'm going to go right around here, slip, slap, just the corner, like I'm sweeping that corner. Burnt umber, yellow ochre. And try not to make it too small. If it's too small, it takes away from the look that we're looking for. All right, now truthfully, most of this gets covered, okay? If you look at that really close, we've got all of this underneath. Then we're gonna lay these little leaves in there and put some stems and then put these little teeny leaves around it. All right, so here's the leaves that we're following. All right, and after I stroke the leaf, I'm gonna pick up some moon yellow and apple red, and it makes it look a little bit like orange because we're mixing those two colors together. All right, now what happens as we practice on here, we're going to come around with the red, apple red in the middle, and moon yellow on the outside. Then I'm going to take my 2 script liner, make inky burnt umber, and I'm just going to put a few more details than I have in the leaves above. So I would come in here and I will add little accents all around. Okay. And that's how we're going to accomplish those leaves. All right. So what we're going to do is, I'm looking at the sides over there. I'm coming right on here. And then we're putting that fall wreath on the door. See, I picked up a little bit stronger yellow. Pull a stem in there. We're going to do more of that later. All right, and then, so I'm going to take each way. I'm going to kind of tilt some this way. Pull a stem in. I'm picking up red and yellow. There we go. Now this one I'm turning, these all came this way, but I tilted them one way or the other. And this bottom one is coming to the right. Okay, we're going to come right here. So no pressure. Don't put pressure on the brush, all right? Because we're trying to make it realistically smaller. All right, so then I have some of these going around this way. So I've got to just turn it a little bit so I can get to it. See how nice the tips of the leaf look? That's what's important, is that we get that look. Oh, my fingernail went right into that color, so we want to get that off. Okay, so I'm going to come right here, moon yellow, and the red, apple red. Okay, and we don't need floating medium when we have plenty of paint. And when you have a size 12 and smaller, you should have plenty of paint on your brush. All right, so I need one more leaf here. I need more paint. There we go. All right, so now what happens here is we're going to take some of these little teeny leaves and some of the dots. So little dots in there. But before I'm going to put some brown accents, but I do want to wash this brush, and let's pick up some of the green. So I have the green I'm going to use is going to be the sap green with a little bit of moon yellow on here. So I'm going to work this in. Moon yellow, sap green, work it in. Okay, so I've cleaned out this brush from doing the leaves, and I'm using the same 12 to do these leaves, but they're going to be really little leaves. Can you see that? I'm coming around here and I'm barely pushing down. And so you've got to practice them on here to feel comfortable. I push and stand up, push and stand up, and you can see how hard you need to push for that to work. Okay? And I just we used these other colors up in the vine above, but for this wreath, we just want them peeping out all the way around. All right, so number 12 flat with sap green and moon yellow. So see, we need that bright color. And we keep getting more paint so that we have that pretty color on there. Moon, sap, work it in. And I know I've used a lot of floating medium earlier, but with what we're doing here, we just need to put enough paint on the brush that we can get that look and not need the medium. All right, so just to finish it up, I said we're going to do the dip dots, which I'll show you on your reusable teaching guide. And let's do the burr umber first, though. Remember, we made inky burr umber with water. And then we're going to pull our stems, and we're going to pull out little stems into the leaf. All the way around here. That just gives you more dimension when we're going to pull the little veins into our leaves. Okay, and now let's dip dot. We're going to do this right here where we're going to dot the berries, and I did yellow and teeny bits of white. I did a little bit on there. So this is moon yellow. It tells you right on your guide, dip. And then you can try it right there to make sure you see it's 1, 2, 3, dip, 1, 2, 3. All the way around. And just to give it a little bit of accent, a couple of places, oops, I put a little bit of wicker white. There we go. Okay, so now I want to go back, and there was a glow, an aura around the candle. Now that it's dry, I'm going to take floating medium on the 12 flat and pick up a teeny bit of white and work this in because I want it really hazy. It's just a light little glow, and so you can come right along here and hold the white against the glow. Against the round glow that's already there. Can you see that? It just makes a nice, I can actually go all the way around like this, wipe that brush off, and then clean it off of the stiles in the window. Okay? And it just gives you more of a glow to finish that off. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish that basket. I wanted to try to get to that basket a couple of times, right? So this, if you're looking at this basket, it's telling you that we're going to use a 2-script liner with wicker white and licorice, and that is for the wrought iron part. And then we're going to double load this brush with sap green and citrus green and paint in where the basket's going to go. So I'm going to come right here and pick up both colors back and forth. All right, and I drew in that shape, remember? I drew that shape there about what size I wanted it. And we don't really see this later, but having the basket shape there really helps you in case some of it does show. And then I'm going to take the sap green on the corner of my brush, and I'm going to do little teeny dabs. And I show you how to do those little dabs right there. We're going to practice them right here. You practice this little bits right here. It shows you this way, this way, this way, and then turn and do some citrus too. Okay? And I want you to see how it's hanging in a few spots. And we put all that on before we come back and do the apple red and the moon yellow, okay? So first thing I like to do is just take the sap and have some that is growing up here a little bit and trailing. Just on the corner of that brush. So I am going to let a little bit of this basket show. A little bit over here. And a little bit out here. Okay, and then what I like to do at second is come back and add a little bit of citrus in here. Citrus green. And all these little details really make a difference in what it looks like when it's all finished. Okay. Okay, so we're going to leave that basket a little bit because I'm going to trail a little red and yellow little vines. Let me go ahead and put a few little vines before we add our added color in here. So a little bit of sap green. All right, and just come in here with little bits of trailing. Just wiggles, you see that? We're wiggling it. And then when we put in our bright colors, it's going to really add to it. So we'll let that dry for a few minutes. And now let's go to these stalks here. So there again, we're going to pick up citrus and citrus green and sap green. And we're going to follow this guide up. We're going to go straight up to get these stems. And then we're going to, and right here, be sure to go right there and make sure that you've got the same color that we're working with. Then what we're going to do is dot with this corner, just like we were doing earlier, just little citrus, and then we can come back and add a little bit of dark coming down. And then the flowers. Same thing here. Here's those little leaves again where we barely touch. And then here's what it's going to look like. We've done the stems, the little greenery at the top where its fresh blossoms are starting. And then we start adding our hollyhocks on here. And then we're going to come right in here. And that's licorice for the center, to shade the center. And then put our pretty little centers in there. So now this is what the hollyhocks look like on here. Look for the hollyhock so you'll know what we're looking for. And this is what it looks like when we put it in our planter. See the planter boxes underneath the window, and there's the hollyhocks, a light green I told you about as we come down. All right, so we're going to put that in. And before I get started adding, I can add the stems first, but I took that little, same thing we're doing in the hanging basket, and I filled in background. Because when you fill in background, it always looks better. I'm going to wipe this off so it doesn't dry on there, because you're probably saying, she didn't wipe it off. Okay. All right, so remember, we're keeping that there after we practice so that we know what we're doing. And can you see inside the box here? All right, so what I'm doing is I'm picking up both those colors again, and you have to have dark to see light. So I'll come in here, just like we did with the hanging basket, and put a little bit of this here. And then I'm going to be lower down in here and put this underneath the birdhouse. Now then turn it around. Sometimes we just want it dark, and then we're going to add bigger leaves and stuff on top. And sometimes we will put a few little light ones in here to give more detail. All right. All right, so do you see I'm working in the back, and then I'm doing the hollyhocks. And then I'm going to put pumpkins. You see the pumpkins? They're going to go on the face of this. So I need everything that's going to be underneath to be first. And then I put the pumpkins, then I add the leaves underneath and grass across here. So that's our steps. The tall green stems, the full green, and some larger green leaves. And then this is like the same as up there almost in your hanging basket. All right, so let's get to the citrus and sap again. Sap green, citrus green. I'm going to put a touch of floating medium just to make it move well. So I'm going to go to the very edge of this planter. And I'm going to do the first stem up here. A shorter one, tall one. I like a tall one up here a little bit more. And different heights right in here. And I am going to come in up under here and put a few nice leaves. And these are the leaves I want you to watch. This is going to be covered with pumpkins, some of this area. But I'm sliding up and back down. All right? Or you can just do single slides. You can do this kind of leaf we're going to practice, or you can do the single leaves. All right? So what happens, remember that at the top up here, we're going to put, you can just keep your eyes open to this. We're going to put little dots with this corner. And I got too thick there. What I will do is put some dark green in there. A little bit over here. All right. All right, so let's pick up a little bit of sap green, and especially when I made too much light green there. Okay, a few little stems coming here at the bottom. It's okay, I've got a little thick on this stem, but I'm going to put a couple blossoms there, so we'll be fine. A little bit here. Okay, so now I'm free to go ahead and put my pumpkins in here while that's drying a little bit so my hollyhocks aren't all green. And let's look at the pumpkin. So when we're looking at this pumpkin, it's telling you that we need to use, we're going to make a mix of to mix to get orange. We're going to use apple red and moon yellow. And then we put the burnt umber stems in there, but you can see that these strokes that we're going to make is this color right here. So I'm going to use moon yellow. You want the moon yellow instead of yellow ochre because it's going to give you a richer looking pumpkin as we're doing this. All right, so come over here and make sure you like the color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make one circle, half circle. See the curve? I put a teeny bit of brown so y'all can see that better. Here's the second curve and the third curve, and then I turn it to the right and we do the same thing over again. And the center one slides down, and slides right back up and gives you that shape right here. So practice this till you feel comfortable layering this. So it's a half circle, then do a second. You do 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2. On this side, 1, 2. And the last one is where you come down and come all the way back up. All right, it's like a big teardrop. Okay, so let's look at see what that looks like. Oops, I got more paint on there. Wait a minute. All right, so we have a big one leaning to the right, and then we have the little one. All right, so it might make you feel more comfortable just to take a piece of chalk or a pencil and draw the shape in. All right, so I know that it was easier for me to say I've got a little one right here. All right, and the leaves are going to come under that. So there's my smaller pumpkin, and it came with this big, way up here, this pumpkin on top. Okay, so I want y'all to see that. So here's my chalk. See that? And this one's going to be leaning on top of it. All right. So I'm going to come right in here and do the back, the one in the back first. All right. So look what I'm going to do. If I want to cover that background, I just put a little bit of moon yellow, yellow ochre there. And then went back to my moon yellow and apple red. Mix it till it's orange. And then I can come in here. Let's get a teeny bit of burnt umber on the apple red edge. So we're going to come all the way around. I'm going to like the yellow better, the moon yellow on the outside better. Let's do that. Okay, so I need to let that dry. That's good to show you. You let it dry, and where the pumpkins are going to sit, we can go ahead and do the leaves. Now this is a fun leaf, okay? I'm going to pick up mostly sap green and 1/3 citrus green. So I work that all into the brush, then I can just dip the colors I need. And there again, no floating medium because we have plenty of paint. But we're going to come right here and we're going to go loop, 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 slide to the tip. And I want you to go slow the first time, but it looks better if you're quicker. But at first, do it really slow till you feel each one of my movements. And then you have to practice this a little bit, guys. But you can get a really nice looking leaf. But I want you to see that this is what we're doing. I'm keeping the dark sap green in the middle. And watch the sap green as I'm doing my little loops. See the sap green staying in the middle? All right, so let's do this again. The citrus is following the pattern, and then the dark green is staying in the middle. All right, and that's what makes that look right. Okay, so see those right there? They're right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put them because then we can put the pumpkin on top of them. But the pumpkin's got to dry some. And it's because I base coated that so that the back wouldn't show through. All right, so what I'm going to do is come right here. All right. I'm picking up a little bit of, it needs the yellow on here. All right, the moon yellow. So turn your piece around so you feel comfortable. I turned all the way around. All right, I'm watching my leaf. All right, and I can come back over here a little bit and pull the stem. So look how that pops. Okay, so I can do these coming my way. So instead of citrus green, I'm picking up a little bit of the moon yellow and the sap green together. All right. And we're going to come right here and pull the stem. So I'm pulling the stem with the chisel of this brush. All right. So you're standing this up and you're going right in the middle to pull the stem in here. Okay, so I'm going to come under this pumpkin. All right, come right here. Doesn't that make a pretty leaf? All right, and then what I wanted to do in this grassy area is I did take the sap green and go back and forth like a slip, slap, slip, slap, slip, slap with the brush. But then I took and picked up A little bit more paint. And let's make some grass, all right, that comes all the way up here. Little bits. All right. Now let's go work on those flowers a little bit. The hollyhocks a little bit right here with the red, and then hopefully the pumpkin will be dry. If not, I'll dry it with a blow dryer. All right. So what we're going to do now is just take the corner of the brush into some apple red for these first little new bits of growth here. I just put a little teeny corner, and it shows you right here how we did this. All right, as we're working on those little ones here and the worksheet ones right here, we have some of these that are dabbing in there, or yellow, moon yellow and apple red. There we go. Just touches of it before we start doing the big flower. Or bigger flower. It's not really big. Okay, now I'm going to pick up, let's get this brush all apple red, and I need the outside edge to be darker. It's like it's a richer looking color. So I'm picking up apple red, and I worked in the burnt umber to the outside edge. Okay. And I'm going to come here very carefully and do the flowers. So let's practice those on here. All right, so I'm coming around, and we're just doing, look at this right here. You're doing that, and it's got little bits of dark on the outside, and then we're going to put that licorice on the inside. So you can practice a few times on here till you feel comfortable. So see, I just put some dark in here this time, and this up here, that's your mix with brown, burnt umber, and red. And up here, you can just put a mix of the red, then come back with the apple red, then come back and put the burnt umber edges. All right, so it's an easy way with this 12 flat to make that happen. So there we are. You can see them there pretty good. So I did come in with burnt umber on a couple of these and made it bigger with just using the burnt umber. And then come in here with apple red. And since it's a small flower and you can't stroke it as easy with this flat of the brush, just put all this red in here and in here. And grab, pick up a little bit of burnt umber, and then you're going to go around the edges. Okay, a little bit, and be ready to put the licorice on the inside. Okay, now while those are there, I'm going to come in here with the moon yellow, and we're going to practice that again because that's the same thing right here and right here. We're just crisscrossing, slapping back and forth just on the very corner of that brush. Okay, so that's what's in here inside the flower box with a little bit more moon yellow and less red, less of the apple red. Okay, so we put some of this in here, and it's got those fall colors. And that could be a lot of different flowers. It can even be little yellow and red daisies or whatever, but we're just doing the dab of color. And then when we're up here, same thing. I like to come in with a little bits of red, and then we can come back with some red, apple red, and moon yellow. Okay, and let's just let some of it trail. All right, so let's take the moon yellow edge into the wet apple red. And it gives you a pretty color in here. And it accents nice on the window and the door. I would like to have these hanging baskets at my house. All right. So what's important about the hollyhocks is if we're using this licorice and we make it inky again on the 2-script liner, and it shows you that we're grabbing from the center and pulling out. So if I'm right here, they have a rich, deep throat in them. So that's why we're pulling these little guys out here. Pulling them out, 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 out. All right, and then even this darker one, okay? So to finish it, you can see I came right there and just put a touch of the moon yellow and maybe a little tip of white. So, and I grabbed red. Okay, so there we go. So we're going to pull out and have them going different directions. And this is thick, straight paint, not inky. Picked up pure white, which is wicker white, and just touch the tips. Touch the very tips of those, which makes them really pop. All right, and so that brings in the other white that we put in here. So let's see. I think our pumpkin's good. So we're going to pick up the moon yellow, a little red, and the apple red moon yellow, and let's make a nice orange over here. Pick up some, scoop it up of both colors until we have a good orange. I'll make it a little bit more apple red so it's darker orange. Okay, so now I've got the orange mix, and then let's pick up the moon yellow. Nice orange with moon yellow. All right, so now see how nice I can get that? All right. So I flatten my brush again so I can do another segment of the pumpkin. Another segment, and then right here in the middle, we scoop it up. All right, so and we can make this one a little bit darker over here if we want to. So see how it's kind of like the flower I just did? You can get that shape in there. And then we can pick up some moon yellow and get some of that. Work that moon yellow in. I'm going to get a teeny bit of wicker white. And then I do the same thing. Look, we want to get the segments of the pumpkin. And then this last segment right here scoops up. Right here, down, and come up. All right, I'm going to do this over. Let's pull it down. I'm going to wipe that off. All right, and then get the second segment showing nice. And then the last one comes down and slides back up. All right. And I tried to add some white there, but I do need to have the yellow on top of that. Moon yellow. There we are. Okay. Now, those will then need the stem, and the stem, I like these stems. If you look at this, it's burnt umber, and we're going to come right here and make a little bit of a curl. See how they all come out of here? Making sure that you get that cool looking stem, which will make it look more fall. And right here, I know we'll have no problem. See how I'm coming in here? But if I want this to show well over here, I might add a little bit of licorice into the burnt umber. So I'm going to come here on each little segment. See that? Each segment. And I'm going to pull those up. Let's look at our pumpkin over here and see what we did. And what I did do was add a teeny bit of white so this really showed. Alright, so I can stroke a little bit of white in there. I put it up under here and a little bit of white there. And I did do a little bit here, but this time it is on the wall where it shows really well. Alright, so when this totally dries, you can come back in here and shade little bits of this darker shades of burnt umber in between there to make the segment show a little bit better there. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is go up there and shade this a little bit before I put our lettering on here, our words. All right, bless his home. So we're going to take a dry brush and get a little bit of burnt umber. Okay, and then we're just going to pull this a little bit on top of here, making sure you've left plenty of time for this to dry underneath, all your hand painting to dry underneath. Yeah, put some shadowing underneath the leaves. Okay, and so I would finish it up by doing the sides really good too. And there again, if you feel like you got a little heavy, you can tap in here and take off little bits because this paint has a sealer in it. It comes off really easy for you. Before we go and do our lettering, bless his home, I'm checking out last little things that touches that I want to put on here. Like I told you, I'd shade this a little bit maybe if I wanted it darker, but I like this one kind of bright. It's a little bit different, but I do need some curlicues down here, tendrils coming from the pumpkin. And so I am making this little mix with not just citrus green, but a little bit of sap. And I can use inky if I want to, but I think I can get this where it's kind of thin and curled. There we go. That works really nice. And I don't have any there, but you can put, because it's sitting a little bit in front. Got a little spot there with licorice to fix that up. Okay, to shade, I want to shade under this planter, and you can see right here it gives it depth, and also under here where I can. So since I have this licorice down here, I'm going to go ahead and shade, and I shaded my birdhouse with some. Let's come in here and let's pick up a little bit of licorice, but I've got a little much on there, a medium. Let's go back and forth. Picking up with the floating medium on this brush, we're going to go back and forth into the licorice. Now I'm going to come right under here and kind of set those leaves into that planter. All right, and then I want to come right here. We can come underneath the pumpkin here. And then I just come right back to my cubby where I was loading and touch the floating medium again with the licorice. All right, so see how that makes it, kind of sets it? I can come in here too and shade a little bit more in this birdhouse if I want to, but there we are. Okay, so let's go look at the completion of this, which is our pretty Bless's home. All right, so when you're looking at this, you can see that we've got like an ombre from the bottom to the top. Same thing up here, but look at the really pretty colors in here. But I like also that we have different fonts that we're working with on the same piece. Okay, so here are my lettering templates that we're going to work with. We have great patterns for you and your hometown kit, and beautiful phrases, assorted sizes, different fonts together. Font pairing is really fun, so we've done some of that for you. So what you do is you take your tracing paper and you trace this right onto the tracing paper. And then you're going to use a permanent marker to do this. And then we're going to take it over here to your project, that you're working on. We did it right here so that you could then transfer it with graphite paper. All right. And you're going to take your stylus and then transfer by tracing over the letters. Okay. And I used on some of the letters like these, we've got to use a really small end, and you can use a little bit bigger if you want to on larger letters. All right, so then you're ready to then pick up the colors that you are going to use and put them onto your project. All right, so we're going to use our script liner a lot on here. All right, this is the 2 script liner, and we've got the colors here for you so you can see. We're using burnt umber, apple red, and moon yellow. All right, and so there's a little bit of licorice that is in here also. So let's start on this one first. Okay, I've got some more fresh burnt umber. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to go on the outlining of this letter and then fill it in. In some areas, just pushing it down just a little bit will give you that look. All right, I'm going to try to be really good about staying within the lines. All right. So turn it around so it's comfortable for you, and just make sure you fill in all of the lines that you've traced and transferred, I mean. All right, and what you're going to do is make sure that you do all the connections, because that makes it look really good too. All right, so what I like about this lettering is that it goes slim and then it gets wider. Gives you really nice areas to shade with. And my script liner is really good about holding a lot of paint. So you can go pressure, release, pressure, release, and get the look that you want when you're doing this type of lettering. All right, so then what happened is that we're putting red on each one. So the red that we use is the apple red, and so we're picking up the apple red, and you're doing the top edges. So from this top area here, coming down, and I just went off there a little bit, let's see. And you're going to do this to each letter. All right, and we can come on around here. And better when you pull. Okay. And lots of times you want to shade all on one side or shade all on the other. You want to put highlights in the same place on every letter. All right, so we have red, apple red across each of those tops. And then we're mixing in a little bit of the yellow. So we're going to come all the way around here with some apple red. And then let's do the top of this right here too. So we have it all in here. And then as we push pressure, remember what I told you, and then we lift, and that kind of transitions over to there. And you can see all the reds put on all of them about the same spot. All right. A little bit down here and lift it till it just glides away. So this is actually yellow ochre. And we're going to come here very lightly. And then we're going to put pressure and lift. Okay, so we're thin, pressure, I told you that's what's so nice about the brush, and then lift. And that's how you finish it up. Then the licorice comes in underneath. See, it's a little bit on the left side of each piece of this. So if we come back with the 2-script liner, I'm going to wet it just slightly with water and work it in. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put right on the left side and the left side. All right, and on this would be this left side also. All right, so we're coming down along here and we're going to take it across the bottom. So we're going to be on the left side, bottom, bottom. Okay, so that's how you, on the left side all the way around, and on the bottom, on the left side of there. Okay, so let's go over this one more time. We're going to go on the left side of the E and come around and do the bottom. Oops, there we go. All right, then we're going to do the left side of this part of the E, and then we're going to go on the bottom of this. All right, so same thing here. We went on all the way here, and then we came on the left side of this part of the L. Okay, so let's go to the bottom letters. I'm going to take this off while I'm right here. Remember my little trick with a wet paintbrush? Okay. I'd like to show you that you can fix it. All right, so let's go down here to these letters, and we're using burnt umber and yellow ochre on these. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2-script liner and come across the tops, across the bottom, and then we're going to come down and cross over, down and cross over, and just fill in your entire transferred letters. Okay, for each one of them. You've always got the top, which is pretty straight on each of the part of the letter. Okay, so I find it easy just to go along and do this first. But these have them coming down when they're at the end of the letter itself. And some of them will have this piece right there. Okay, so then we also have this right here. When you've got to cross across this way. And then from then on, you're just pulling it down. And it's always nicer to pull it towards you. And so your whole goal right here is to see how good you can stay within the lines. So the liner is nice because remember I said you can put pressure and it fills in. Or you can be on the tip of the brush and just get a little line. Okay. So next what we're going to do is I want to take the same brush, and all we did was highlight the top half of each letter, and it just pulls in the yellow ochre that we used up top. All right, so we're going to come right on here. It's better when it's wet, but you can do it anytime. All right, and we're just going to go halfway down the letter with the script liner. And we go the same thing over here. And so what happens on the H is that we just have a line across here. And it's on the top part of that crosshatch there. All right, so I want you to see that each one of these kind of came down and then had a nice little ending. Okay, but it comes to a point kind of and ends. I like this one. See that one? All right. And there you are. So when you get through putting your pretty letters on, then it will be all ready for you to hang with pride or give as a gift. And there we are. Okay, so let's go see what that looks like again when you put it on this fun painting for the fall at your house. Look how nice the Bless This Home looks on this piece. It just kind of completed it. So the difference is, I want you to see how fun. Look at the difference of nothing being there, or how we richened it by putting this here. And I also came and shaded around to darken some of the door area and all. So you just have fun with it. You can come around, shade more than I did if you want to, or even add shading under the Bless and the Home, just like I did around some of these areas. Wasn't that lesson fun on how to do raised panels on the door, how to make the window pane look like it's got a candle and a glow in it? And I love sharing with you how to do these leaves and the pumpkins and all the elements that make fall. Isn't that great? Well, I want to make sure that you know that we have a wonderful place for you to go and join a group with us. And that group is Let's Paint with Plaid. It's on Facebook. We have a great time, and we love for people to come join us that are wanting to be part of our Let's Paint program. And Let's Paint program is not just FolkArt One Stroke. It's all other aspects of Plaid and the products that we have here. We have wonderful instructors that teach night classes and teach techniques, and you're gonna see Chris Williams and Andy Jones, and I can't name everybody. There's so many wonderful artists at this company, but I feel very blessed to be part of it. And what I would love for you to do is to join our Facebook group and then take pictures of the paintings you've done with One Stroke, and I would love to share those and show you off to all the people that are members of this wonderful Facebook group. So to post your pictures, please tag hashtag Let's Paint Challenge, and then everybody's going to be able to tell you how they like your painting, and that feels good. So I'm excited for you to join me next month in November to do this beautiful painting. I love that it's a big, beautiful family and friends sign, and those painted roses on there, I think you're gonna love it. So until next month, let's paint.